Can you tell me a little bit about working in a male-dominated sport?
I can tell you a lot.
I told a lot of people back in America that I was coming out here to fish on the River Spey, and they were very jealous. So can you guys tell me why this river is so important and the history of it?
Of course. Well, I think, Jen, you'll be better at the history of it. But from my perspective, it's definitely a special place throughout my life and throughout generations of my family, as with Lady Caroline and Down. And so we find this a very important place for us that we enjoy coming to as much as we possibly can.
And do you want to speak on the history?
The history, yeah. So the first book of fly fishing was written by a woman in the 15th century. And so our history lesson goes way back. And so for it's specifically this section of the river, Lady Caroline and her sister, Lady Florence, actually would bring groups of women here, and they would take them fishing and then have a shore lunch like we did and then go back out fishing. And she literally made this like the first hosted women's trips that, was just unheard of back in the day. And so to me, to be able to stand here where so much history has happened for women in fly fishing, and to know that this stretch of the river here was just at one point just filled with women is just so unusual, especially for the 1800s, and just such an important part of our history lesson.
And the Spey cast was originated here. For me, that's what I can't get over.
Can you explain to me what the Spey cast is?
Yeah, sure. How much time have we got? The Spey cast is a cast that allows us to be able to cover a lot of water without needing a lot of back casting room. And it allows us to use both of our hands to be able to really turn over a long line and a larger size fly, because a lot of the historical patterns are quite large, with minimal effort.
Can you help me understand what makes this river so special?
So throughout history, the Spey has been one of the big four in Scotland, but this is also the king of salmon rivers. For generations has played an important part in the salmon fishing industry, but right now it is also part of the preservation of salmon. Salmon being a keystone species within the river doesn't just tell you about the health of your river, but also tells you about the health of your ocean. So at the moment, that's a very important thing that we need to focus on.
We're so close to the ocean here. So when we do get fish, these salmon their scales, you can see by looking at photos, they're so fresh you can probably pick them off, I would imagine. Are they that fresh?
They usually have a few sea lice.
Sea lice on them. I mean, they're straight from the ocean. And then to have a fish that fresh, they fight better. They're gorgeous. There are a limited number of fisheries out there in the world where you can catch an anadromous fish of this caliber. You lucky, lucky woman.
Very, very lucky.
I think that all really historical salmon and steelhead rivers are the best in the world. But the Spey, like you said, the big four, this is one of the rivers that we dream of.
So I heard a comment before I came out here where someone mentioned to me that they don't think that just anybody can fish on the Spey. Can you tell me more about how somebody can come here and have this experience that we're having?
So with our beats here, we have 4 beats.
And what is a beat?
So a beat is a section of the river that has a number of pools in it and usually has a beat gilly who look after it very fantastically. And they will help you whether you're learning to fish or whether you just want a few pointers or you need help netting your biggest fish you've ever caught. They're on hand. So we let out the fishing to those who want to come. We have people who come back every year. We have people who come just for the day, they book in, and it's a fantastic way to spend your day.
Can you tell me a little bit about working in a male-dominated sport?
I can tell you a lot, but we won't.
It was different back then. It was before social media. This is before Wi-Fi and smartphones. And so to be taken, first of all, to be booked, you had to be taken seriously and known. And the only way to do that was you had to write for magazines, get your certification as a casting instructor, and also go to clubs and show people that you really knew what you were talking about. And so, there were a lot of people who showed up just to watch, and then by the end of my talks, they'd be a little more engaged. And so it just started from there. Nobody was going to take that passion from me. That was important to me, that I always, like you saw today, got to the river and was just as excited, because we don't get into fly fishing to be with other people. So why would you let another person take that away from you.
That's why I started the history lesson, because I would walk in a fly shop and they would say, "Are you here for something for your husband?" And I'd say, "No, I'm not married." "For your boyfriend?" "No, I don't have a boyfriend." "For your dad?" "No, my dad doesn't fish." And they just were so perplexed by the fact that I was there for myself. They couldn't figure it out. Where I started in Michigan at the time, I didn't see another woman on the river, so I thought we were new to the sport. And then when I found out that we from the first book written by Dame Juliana Burns to everything up until, the way that we bait and switch for billfish. I mean, those were inventions that were women, like the modern day streamer, the woman. I can go on and on and on about the things that we've done that those were the stories that were not being told in my fly shop.
The stories were always there,
Yeah.
but they just hadn't necessarily been told.
That was years and years and years and years ago. I think that
It's
that
different
has
now.
changed.
It's changed.
Completely different now. And, now you can walk in a fly shop and find women's waders and gear for women. I mean,
And it's less jaw-dropping now.
Yeah.
When you see other women now, I think everyone's a lot more comfortable with it. Whereas for a while there, people would just question your motive because you couldn't possibly be out here because you love fishing. We worked on that. We did that.
hard on that. Kudos to Lady Caroline, man.
So we've mentioned Lady Caroline a few times in this conversation. Can you explain to me who that is and the legacy of Lady Caroline?
Absolutely. So Lady Caroline was my great aunt. She was always heralded as one of the most successful fishers when they were here. And the whole estate was much larger at that point. It was about 400,000 acres. It was a sporting estate. So there was shooting, stalking, fishing, but it was the whole way of life. The garden fed the castle. There was a fish trap down in Dyke, just down the river from us here, which fed the castle. Although Lady Caroline was known for possibly being able to feed the castle just from the catch from her rod. As a family, we were never told her story as a specific bedtime story. It more is just how her way of life has permeated down to us. She just has changed how we were brought into fishing, so it was completely normal that me and my sister fished. There was never any question that we wouldn't, and even to the point that a friend has done a drawing of Lady Caroline's fly and it's on my wedding invitation. So that's quite how much she's got into our lives.
So can you tell me a little bit about how Gordon Castle Estates functions today?
So today we have the 4 beats of the river, the castle itself, which is also rented out on a weekly basis. Then also have a whole load of holiday cottages, which you can stay in to come fishing or shooting or whatever you want to do. And then one of the most important things is the walled garden, which after my dad and stepmum created the gin and the bath and beauty products, thought, oh, well, maybe people will want to come and see the provenance of where these things have come from. My dad and stepmum have worked tirelessly over the last however many years to make what, when I was little, was a field with a wall around it, but still with the same fruit trees. That is now the beautiful garden that you see today. And I still can remember being 6 and coming along and riding my bike around and picking the fruit, and just as we arrived for our summer in Scotland. But now I get to see everyone else doing that, and I get to see everyone with their gin or their jams, knowing that it's all a little bit of my special home that people can take away with them.
Yeah, it's interesting as a travel writer. I mean, I stay in a lot of hotels, and last night I was laying in bed just thinking about who has been here before and just all the stories that castle holds, and I typically am not thinking about that when I'm traveling to different places. So it's so cool. It's a captivating experience.